Hey, this is Stuart at Ship to Shore Cruise News, coming up with some more information for you. Hopefully this is helpful to answer some questions you might have about COVID and cruise lines. So there is currently the Ruby Princess under investigation for COVID cases. It's had some pretty bad luck in the last year. I think it's 4 times it's come back to port with many people on board who have tested positive. Well, how do they identify people who are positive, and how do they test so many people? Well, first of all, the fact that they're finding so many people on board with COVID or testing positive means that their protocols are working, and that's a good thing to know. Typically, what happens is if someone's feeling sick, they will report to medical to be tested, to be consulted and tested. And if they are tested positive, then there's just some basic contact tracing that goes on. They'll take a look to see if perhaps they've been on an excursion lately with some other people, or perhaps they're sharing a room with someone as well. They just do some basic contact tracing and go from there. Another way to do it is if crew members, they might see someone with very obvious symptoms of COVID, and it might be suggested that these people go and get tested for COVID. Once they're identified as being positive or not, then contact tracing will go on from there. And the cruise lines have many different forms of being able to contact trace people. Typically, they will only contact trace people who have been in close contact with the positive person, in contact with them for about 15 minutes or longer. So you don't have to worry about just passing somebody in a hallway or standing in line for them for a quick minute at the buffet. It's mainly if you're sitting with someone who's positive for longer than 15 minutes or so. Once you have tested positive, if you are, you're either put in isolation or quarantine. What's the difference? Well, isolation means that you can't leave the room they put you in. Quarantine means that you're going to be restricted as to your movements. Most likely they'll just put you in isolation. Sometimes it can be in the room you're booked, but other times, some cruise ships, some cruise lines have what they call a red zone. This will be an area close to the medical center where passengers who have tested positive will go and will stay. Typically an ocean view of some sorts. While there, you'll be given access to many amenities such as Wi-Fi, pay-per-view movies, and free room delivery as well. After that, if your quarantine period has ended, before your ship gets back to disembarkation port, then you'll be allowed to go free. If you still need to be isolated after you get back to the cruise port, well, if you have driven to the port yourself and you live close by, you'll be allowed to drive home. Otherwise, you'll be transported to a quarantine hotel. The cost of this might be covered by the cruise line, and you should just check with your cruise line to see what their policies are. Some cruise lines will pay for the hotel and transportation home. Other cruise lines will tell you that you should just check with your travel insurance to see if they'll cover that for you. Anyway, I was recently on the Norwegian Joy, and I said, what happens if I tested positive? And they said that I would be the last person to leave the ship, and I would be taken straight to a quarantine hotel. It was kind of nice to know that they would take care of me, that they would put me up in a hotel, that they'd place me there. It was not known to the people I asked whether or not I would pay for it, or the cruise line would pay for it at that time, or my insurance would pay for it. But that's another good reason to buy some insurance, travel insurance, when you're on a cruise ship. I buy it every time I go. Talk to your travel agent about buying travel insurance. You can take a look at what the cruise lines offer as well. What you need to do is take a look at the package being offered by the various insurance providers and pick the one that's best for you. But for the peace of mind, it's well worth it. I highly advise getting travel insurance for any travel that you do. Anyway, I hope this has answered some questions, made some people feel better about cruising. I'm not afraid to go cruising. Have I got sick on a cruise before? Yeah, I have gotten sick. I called it cruise crud, and that's pre-COVID times. But who knows what I had or what sickness I had. Anyway, good talking to you. Good seeing you again. Talk to you later.